In the archives of the city of Naples, within the section dedicated to the burials of the aristocratic class of the 15th century, there is a very old and nearly faded record written on yellowed parchment. This inscription speaks of a tomb located in a private chapel of the Church of Santa Maria la Nova, distinguished by the unusual symbols that adorn it. Unlike the typical images and ornaments common in Italy at that time, this tomb features symbols that evoke surprise and bewilderment. There is an image of a knight's helmet, two sphinxes seemingly guarding the deceased's rest, and a dragon. Its depiction is particularly vivid. The head crowns the helmet, and the scales carved in stone are rendered with frightening realism as if alive. Before we proceed to the main part of the story, we would like to ask for a small favor. Your attention and appreciation are expressed through a like and subscription, which would be the best reward for us. Thank you for your understanding and support. For centuries, this tomb remained almost unnoticed. In a city full of artworks and rich burials, it was considered just one of many ancient monuments that did not attract much attention. However, everything changed in the year 2400, when a group of researchers, equipped with the most advanced technologies, capable of penetrating through centuries and other temporal layers, began to decipher what was hidden in the inscription and epitaph. Their discovery shocked the entire global scientific community. In a single word, Vlad, lay an entire universe of mysteries. This name, this dragon symbol, seemed out of place in time. They pointed to a different history, a different fate, hidden behind centuries. A history written in blood on the snowy passes of the Carpathians, which could hardly relate to the Italian hinterland. A story about a prince whose name became synonymous with horror and evil. This was Vlad Tepes, also known as Vlad the Impaler, a man remembered by the people under a more sinister name, Dracula. For 500 years, his grave was sought throughout Romania, in monasteries, on battlefields, in abandoned crypts and dungeons. Every trace found led to fruitless emptiness. Official sources claimed he was killed in battle, his head delivered to the Ottoman Sultan as a trophy, and his body discarded somewhere in the forests of Wallachia. But what if this version is merely a lie? What if Vlad's body was not destroyed and was secretly taken out of the country, in the most daring heritage rescue operation ever conducted in history? And what if the grave of the most brutal and famous ruler of Eastern Europe has been in Italy all this time, at the heart of its cultural heritage? This is not just a legend, but a real investigation that leads us to a tomb capable of completely changing all our perceptions of the man who became a myth. For nearly 5 centuries, the final resting place of Vlad II of Wallachia, better known as Vlad the Impaler, has remained one of the most enigmatic and thrilling mysteries. Shrouded in both facts and legends, this mystery has captivated scholars and history enthusiasts alike. His name echoes throughout Eastern Europe and beyond, conjuring images of ruthless justice and bloody retributions. Born in 1430 into the noble Dracula family, Vlad lived a life filled with violence, political intrigue, and a constant struggle for survival. His reign in Wallachia occurred during a very tumultuous and bloody period, as the Ottoman Empire rapidly expanded into Europe, threatening the entire Christian world. During these years, he demonstrated incredible resilience. For many centuries, Vlad the Impaler, known as the Vampire Count, was not just a leader to his people, but a fierce protector, willing to commit the most brutal acts for the survival of his land and his people. In the popular memory, his image has become a symbol of resilience and strength, simultaneously evoking fear and respect. To outsiders, especially the Ottoman conquerors, he was a cruel tyrant whose rule was steeped in blood and brutal executions. In folklore and legends, his figure has forever been associated with supernatural horrors, and in the minds of many, he became a symbol of dark forces and mystical terrors. When Irish writer Bram Stoker published his famous novel about Dracula in 1897, Stoker's count was only loosely inspired by the story of Vlad the Impaler. This literary work transported the vampire legend into the grim realm of Gothic horror, completely detaching it from the real events and the tumultuous, bloody life of the ancient ruler. Although Stoker's novel sparked immense fascination worldwide, it also buried the historical Vlad under layers of myths, legends, and fantasies. Over the centuries, as the literary image gained popularity, numerous expeditions, archaeological digs, and searches have attempted to find the true burial site of Vlad the Impaler. Yet all their efforts have been in vain. The lack of precise and convincing evidence turned the search into a legend in itself, a mystery that continued to tantalize the minds of historians, adventurers, and archaeologists. These quests became not just attempts to find a body, but a true legend, an unsolvable puzzle that remains shrouded in mystery for centuries. Despite centuries of myths and the mists of time, recent events have breathed new life into these ancient quests. Researchers, based on new data and archaeological findings, have concluded that they may have compelling evidence. They claim to have discovered a mysterious fortress, which they believe to be a forgotten and long-lost fortress located in an ancient chapel, situated in a remote area far from the known battlefields in the region of Wallachia. This discovery, they claim, could be the key to unraveling the mystery of the resting place of one of history's most infamous and enigmatic figures, Vlad the Impaler. But how exactly did these researchers come to such a conclusion? To understand why Vlad the Impaler's remains might be located so far from where they were previously thought to be, one must look back at the final days of his life, those moments when his fate was ultimately decided. These final days were as brutal and filled with intrigue as his tumultuous life. In the autumn of 1476, as cold winds began to blow in the Carpathian foothills, Vlad faced his last and most fateful challenge. During this period, he was engaged in a bloody battle with the forces of Ottoman Sultan Mehmed II. This battle was fierce and decisive, marking the end of an era and the conclusion of an epical struggle for power and freedom that Vlad had so fiercely defended. According to contemporary historical chronicles, he was killed during this battle. Some sources suggest that his death was the result of betrayal, possibly by his own allies or subordinates, weary of endless wars, who might have betrayed him amidst the chaos of battle. Others believe he was killed in a sudden attack, planned in the shadows of war and intrigue. The details of this tragic event remain murky, but one thing is clear. Vlad's death was followed by a horrific trophy that shocked and horrified all who witnessed it. His head was severed and sent to the Ottoman capital, the city of Constantinople. There, according to legend, it was put on public display. Despite years of searching and numerous archaeological expeditions related to this question, historical sources from that period provide very few clear and unequivocal details. None of the existing documents confirm that the final resting place of Vlad the Impaler, known as Vlad Dracula, was definitively established or recorded in any of the known locations, whether it be the city of Snagov or elsewhere in the region. This creates an educated gap between the legendary history surrounding the name of this famous prince and the real, verifiable historical truth that could shed light on his fate. For many decades, archaeologists and researchers studying this era have systematically and meticulously excavated the site of the ancient monastery in Snagov, hoping to find tangible evidence, such as bones, artifacts, or inscriptions, that could confirm or refute the hypothesis of Vlad's burial there. However, all these efforts have proven fruitless, and the excavation results have been more disappointing than convincing. They have only deepened the mystery, providing nothing more definitive. Moreover, during the work, new rumors and speculations arose about possible other sites scattered throughout the region. These were fortified fortresses, ancient churches, and abandoned estates hidden in time and memory. Each of these supposed locations had its own tales and legends, often filled with mysterious hints and ambiguity. Some believe that Vlad's final resting place was intentionally hidden to protect his remains from desecration or vandalism, while others thought that the political upheavals, wars, and conflicts that engulfed the region in different eras might have destroyed or concealed his grave, making it inaccessible to modern researchers. Over time, the legacy of Vlad the Impaler turned into a complex blend of facts and myths, and his actual physical remains have almost disappeared or been destroyed by time and circumstances. However, with the development of new archaeological methods, the emergence of modern forensic technologies, and a renewed sense of purpose and persistence, the veil of mystery is slowly but surely beginning to lift. Recent discoveries have unearthed an ancient tomb marked by mysterious inscriptions and rare medieval symbols. This find undoubtedly gives historians and researchers the most reliable chance to date to finally answer the question that has plagued generations. Where does the famous Vlad the Impaler truly rest? The first attempt to discover his tomb occurred almost 100 years ago and became an important milestone in efforts to unravel this ancient mystery. In the distant 91st year of the 20th century, a team of Romanian archaeologists began excavations, hoping that this would be the fateful discovery confirming the true resting place of Vlad II, known as Vlad the Impaler. Their main focus was on the ancient monastery in Snagov, a site long surrounded by legends and rumors that the prince's tomb was hidden beneath its sacred ground. The monastery itself, with its weathered stone walls, ancient cloisters, and inner courtyard, bore the marks of a centuries-old history filled with legends and reverence. As the archaeologists carefully removed layers of earth and stone to reach potential treasures, their anticipation grew increasingly tense. A heavy atmosphere of expectation hung in the air, for success would mean not only unraveling the mystery, but also finally confirming the legends. If Vlad's remains were found there, it would be the greatest archaeological event, putting an end to centuries of doubts and speculations. However, unfortunately, all excavations ended in disappointment. Instead of the expected tomb containing the remains of the famous prince, archaeologists found only animal bones, puzzling remains of unknown creatures, and, most astonishingly, nothing human. Some scientists, accepting the reality that Vlad Tepes's traces might forever remain hidden in the depths of the Snagov forest, still couldn't shake the feeling that there was something more to it. For them, the absence of direct evidence became more of a challenge than a reason to abandon the search. They saw it as a mysterious clue pointing to other, more enigmatic horizons. What if, for instance, the prince's remains were not resting in Romania at all? What if the long-held beliefs about the location of his burial were mistaken, and the true site of his grave had been hidden from view for many centuries? Initially, this idea seemed incredible, almost unacceptable for national pride and the history shaped by words and legends over the centuries. The notion that Vlad Tepes's grave was located somewhere far beyond the native borders seemed almost a betrayal, an alien thought that could shake the established historical narrative. But over time, as the disappointment from the unsuccessful searches in Snagov began to fade, and curiosity and persistence grew stronger, some researchers decided to expand the boundaries of their search. They began to consider the possibility that the prince's burial site was beyond the Carpathians, in a broader part of Europe, in regions that previously seemed unlikely. The trail that eventually led them to Naples was composed of quiet whispers, forgotten tales, and faint threads of legends that resisted simple refutation. At the center of this growing story was a figure long overshadowed by history, Maria Balsha, the alleged illegitimate daughter of Vlad Tepes. According to scattered medieval sources, her fate was tied to fleeing the turmoil that engulfed her native lands at a time when her life changed forever after Vlad's violent death. In search of refuge and protection, she traveled far from her homeland, hoping to find safety in lands where her heritage could not harm her. Italy became her sanctuary, a country that embraced her as its own, where the Firula family, a noble and respected lineage with deep roots in Naples, took her under their wing. It was not just an ordinary adoption, but rather an act of protection, carefully calculated and thought out, an attempt to safeguard both the young girl and her precious cargo, the remains of Vlad the Hun himself. According to the hypothesis, Maria brought her father's bones to Italy, hoping to keep them safe from possible desecration that might await them in the unstable and war-torn Wallachia. For decades, historians dismissed this story as a myth or legend, born from romantic fantasies about Vlad Tepes that found no confirmation in documents. They considered it a beautiful tale, nothing more than a product of imagination. However, as the 20th century gained momentum, a group of determined researchers began repeatedly turning to the archives, sifting through dusty manuscripts, marriage records, and genealogical trees. They discovered numerous inconsistencies, strange mentions, and names on the yellowed pages of the Firula family's private documents that did not match the official version of events. Among them stood out the Turbolo family, owners of a small private chapel located in the wealthy and ornate church complex of Santa Maria la Nova in Naples. This minor detail could have easily gone unnoticed, but it sparked the researchers' interest. Frequently mentioned in connection with the Farella family, it also appeared in documents related to Maria Balsha. Could this chapel conceal more than just a place of worship? Could it be linked to secrets intertwined with one of each restoration carried out on the ancient church left its mark, layering new strata of historical heritage onto its walls? As a result, the architectural appearance of this sacred place became a blend of various styles, from Gothic and Renaissance to Baroque splendor. All these eras, like artists, added their strokes, creating a unique and complex image popularly called Belen. Inside this calm and quiet space, where time seems to slow down, are cloisters, secluded monastic corridors filled with silence and contemplation. Among them stands out one special, the Turbolo Chapel, hidden from the eyes of most visitors, yet harboring many secrets and mysteries. It is a place where marble and stone seem to whisper about ancient events, about people whose destinies intertwined with the church's history. The Turbolo Chapel is not just an architectural structure, it hides a tomb crafted with the highest skill, and behind each of its elements lies deep meaning connected with history and legends. Commissioned by a powerful Neapolitan family renowned for its influence and wealth, it became a symbol of status and power. At the center of the composition is an intricately carved tomb executed with astonishing precision and attention to detail. Its facade is adorned with a finely sculpted knight's helmet, crowned with the image of a dragon's head. This figure seems alive, its fierce jaws and scaly crest breathing in stone, imparting a special strength and expressiveness to the entire composition. This symbol is not accidental. Historians and medieval researchers are convinced that it is closely linked to the Order of the Dragon, a chivalric society founded in the early 10th century by Emperor Sigismund of the Holy Roman Empire. The main task of this order was to protect Christian Europe from the threat posed by the Ottoman Empire and to fight against Muslim conquerors. This war, involving knights and soldiers, largely defined the political and military landscape of that era. Vlad II Dracula, the father of the infamous Vlad the Impaler, better known as Vlad Dracula, was one of the knights inducted into this order. His nickname, Dracula, meaning son of the dragon in Romanian, became a symbol of his belonging to an ancient legendary lineage. This name, along with the depiction of a dragon helmet on his tomb, is not merely decorative, but a heraldic reference to his heritage. It underscores the connection to the warlike and bloody history of his family, forged in battles and skirmishes. To the right and left of the tomb are two statues resembling enigmatic sphinxes, imposing and mysterious figures whose origin and meaning have long been the subject of scholarly debate. Unlike the more common religious figures found in church interiors, these statues exude an aura of mystery and seem to have come from another world, suggesting a connection to external cultures, possibly beyond Naples. One of those who dedicated himself to studying these mysterious figures was the esteemed historian Raphael Glenny, a specialist in Balkan European relations. He asserted that these statues were not merely decorative, but served as guardians of sorts, protecting the tomb and linking it to ancient myths and legends. According to Glenny, the figures act as symbols, creating a protective presence that unites the entombed with mythical images characteristic of the old Balkan peoples and cultures. These symbols reflect a crossroads of cultures where elements of Christian knighthood meet the mysterious, often war-torn heritage of Eastern Europe. In their entirety, they form a complex tapestry. Using the most advanced achievements in photography, experts employed modern scanning technologies and conducted in-depth linguistic analysis to understand the meaning of the images adorning the ancient tomb. These images had been weathered by time, their carved details partially eroded, and the inscriptions barely discernible. It was through the persistent and meticulous work, combining scientific techniques and philological expertise, that researchers made a significant discovery. During the careful study and decryption of the lost sections of inscriptions, the team uncovered a hidden text among the faded symbols, a message deliberately concealed to keep its meaning inaccessible to those who might casually or superficially view these images. This message was crafted to preserve a secret, perhaps to be understood only by initiates or those with special knowledge. After several months of diligent work aimed at restoring the lost letters and symbols, two words emerged particularly clearly: The first was the name Vlad, and the second was Balkan. These words drew special attention from researchers, as a phonetically similar word to Vlad appears in medieval writings and could be a variant or abbreviation of this name. The word Balkan, in turn, was a direct reference to a geographical area, a mountainous region in southeastern Europe, where one of the most famous and enigmatic rulers, Vlad the Impaler, reigned. This region was historically renowned for its fierce resistance to Ottoman expansion, and Vlad's name was repeatedly associated with legends of his cruelty and strength. For scholars, these coincidences were not accidental, and they saw them as confirmation of the hypothesis that the person buried in this tomb could have been either Vlad himself or someone connected to him, possibly Vlad the Impaler, better known as Vlad the Impaler. However, when the team prepared their findings for publication in scientific journals and presented them at international conferences, their hypothesis was met with skepticism from colleagues. Leading historians and archaeologists studying the era in which the supposed tomb owner lived dismissed this theory as too speculative and unsupported by direct evidence. They reminded that archives lacked documents or any clear evidence that would unequivocally link the discovered remains or inscriptions to Vlad the Impaler. Moreover, the idea that the grave of Vlad, the legendary ruler who, according to lore, died in distant Wallachia and was buried elsewhere, suddenly appeared far from his native lands and was located in a chapel in Naples seemed almost incredible and challenged established notions of his fate. This hypothesis seemed so bold and unusual that many scholars regarded it with great skepticism. Nevertheless, the work of the Turin team opened a new chapter in the study of one of the most mysterious and elusive ancient graves. Their findings sparked a wave of new discussions, interest, and debates among specialists and history enthusiasts. In the dark ancient chapel, hidden beneath centuries of stone masonry and marble facades, lay clues that might indicate that the figure, once instilling fear and awe across the European continent, could be far from its native places. Perhaps it rests in silence in another land, thousands of kilometers from the native lands where its legend was born. The enigmatic epitaph, clearly mentioning the names Vlad and Balkan, remained forever as evidence that history is not yet fully revealed, and its secrets await their time. These clues, like a quiet whisper from the past, remained almost unnoticed and ignored for nearly a decade. They were forgotten and overlooked until their sudden and surprising breakthrough occurred. The connection to Naples, which previously, this short, almost unnoticed comment, spoken in a characteristic style that could belong to a popular host, unexpectedly sparked a storm of interest, like a wildfire engulfing the entire audience. Many listeners, many of whom were previously unaware of the shadowy history of a man named Vlad, suddenly found themselves drawn into a mysterious and enigmatic narrative. This case became the subject of lively discussions and debates across various social networks, on forums dedicated to history, as well as in scientific and academic circles. What once seemed like a distant and insignificant topic had now turned into a global issue for discussion and research. Enthusiasts, skeptics, professional scientists, and researchers all delved into the study of old forgotten texts and new archaeological findings to understand. Could the famous, or rather infamous, Vlad the Impaler have been hiding somewhere in the depths of the Italian city of Naples, far from his native lands? By the 25th year of the 21st century, inspired by this newfound interest and armed with the most modern technologies, an interdisciplinary team of specialists, archaeologists, historians, and forensic experts set out once more to the Turbala Chapel. They were equipped with the latest ground-penetrating radar systems and multispectral imaging devices capable of unveiling secrets buried beneath centuries of stone, mortar, and time. It was a mission that promised to challenge long-standing opinions and assumptions. The results were astonishing and overwhelming. A scan through the marble floor of the chapel revealed what specialists claimed to be a previously hidden inner chamber, which had not been recorded in any existing church archives or documents. It was essentially a sealed fortress, invisible to the eye for centuries, perhaps by the design of its creators. When the team of archaeologists gained access to this hidden chamber, the atmosphere was filled with a sense of anticipation and historical significance. In the dim light cast by their modern devices, fragments of an ancient coffin were revealed. Its wooden structure had long since decayed, leaving only vague traces and remnants. Among the debris, they found richly colored fabric, which, despite the centuries, retained vibrant hues, indicating the high status and wealth of the deceased. Scattered around were metal pieces, many covered in rust, yet retaining their shapes and craftsmanship. These might have been remnants of decorative clasps or fittings that adorned the coffin, but the most important and thrilling discovery was a small lead plate, tarnished by time, yet bearing a distinct inscription, "Vlad and the Balkans," repeated on the facade of the outer tomb. This find was a true revelation for the researchers. It was more than just a coincidence or accident. This plate was a silent witness linking two places, confirming that here lay a man named Vlad, connected to the Balkans. One of the scholars, a specialist in medieval epigraphy, leaned in closer and, looking at the artifact, exclaimed, "This is astonishing." These words expressed the team's collective astonishment, as the discovery not only confirmed the theory of this place's connection to Naples, but also opened new horizons for understanding history. It spoke of secrets hidden for centuries, of the preservation and deliberate protection of the remains. The chamber inside the chapel and its contents indicated that someone had intentionally tried to hide these remains, possibly to protect them from the curious eyes of local residents or foreign invaders. The absence of any mentions or records of this person's movements or remains in Ottoman documents only strengthened this hypothesis and made it even more enigmatic. It seemed that the story of Maria Bolschi's secret journey, a woman who dared to undertake the incredible act of transporting her father's remains across borders to protect them from the ravages of time and potential conflicts, had intentionally vanished from the broader historical narrative. This breakthrough in the study of the past not only changed the perception of Vlad Tepes's final resting place, but also opened up an enticing opportunity for researchers to see what measures people took to preserve the legacy of this mysterious and controversial figure. It was a discovery that resonated far beyond the marble walls of the chapel in Torbolo, where it was found, and managed to revive forgotten legends that had shrouded the image of this historical character for centuries. It prompted reflection on what we truly know about Vlad Tepes and offered a new perspective on his fate and place in history. If the results of the Neapolitan discovery withstand rigorous scrutiny by scientific and historical methods, their implications could be truly revolutionary. For a long time, the story of Vlad Tepes's death seemed fairly straightforward, and despite its brutality, appeared rooted in familiar tales. According to these versions, the ruthless prince was killed in battle, beheaded by his enemies, and his head was paraded through the streets of Constantinople as a gruesome trophy. His body, according to these accounts, was left to rot in the wild forests of Romania. Such stories, entrenched in textbooks and passed down through generations in folklore, painted Vlad as a cold, cruel, and isolated figure whose final moments were steeped in humiliation and oblivion. However, new evidence uncovered in the modest chapel in Naples begins to threaten to completely dismantle this widely accepted version of events. In its place emerges a more complex and politically charged narrative, where Vlad's death appears not as the random demise of a despised warrior, but as the result of a complex web of diplomatic intrigue and familial strategies. The presence of inscriptions linking the tomb to Vlad's name, as well as artifacts clearly showing connections to noble families and displays of reverence, suggests that his burial was intended for honor, not disgrace. This in turn implies the presence of a hidden narrative of loyalty and protection, a secret mission of his closest allies or descendants, whose task was to preserve Vlad's memory and legacy in a foreign land. Despite all external animosities and political intrigues, historical ties between the Balkans and Italy in the late Middle Ages were often tense, filled with conflicts and distrust. However, this discovery may shed light on a surprising chapter of their interaction, showing that there were more complex, less obvious relationships between them, alliances and mutual respect that crossed borders and cultures. Moreover, it has the potential to change the established view of Vlad the Impaler, transforming him from a regional military leader into a figure whose influence and significance spread far beyond Wallachia, encompassing all of Europe. His posthumous journey through Naples connects the Balkans with the political and cultural space of the 15th century Mediterranean. an era of change, upheaval, and power struggles. This broader context adds additional depth to our understanding of Vlad. He appears not only as a fierce defender of his homeland, but also as a personality whose death was a carefully planned part of the complex web of European political games. Thus, history transforms from a tale of death and disgrace into a narrative of legacy and memory, of how history preserves or erases its most formidable heroes. At the same time, despite all the new discoveries and assumptions, the plot remains unfinished, balancing between conjecture and confirmed facts, evoking increasing interest and a desire to uncover the truth. The sealed tomb continues to hold its silence, like a silent guardian protecting secrets that have yet to be revealed. It stands immobile, a reminder of those mysteries of the past waiting for their moment to be unveiled. The next important step in the investigation will be DNA analysis, a process looming on the horizon that promises to either confirm or refute the boldest theories put forward by archaeologists and historians in recent years. This method, although very promising, is fraught with numerous challenges and complexities that require patience and precision. First and foremost, establishing Vlad the Impaler's lineage for comparison with DNA samples is no easy task. It involves finding living descendants, which can be a daunting task, as well as working with historical records that are often fragmented, damaged, or contentious among scholars. Additionally, extracting viable DNA from remains that have lain for centuries and been subjected to the ravages of time is an extremely complex and delicate process, requiring high expertise and specialized technologies. Skeptics do not hide their concerns, reminding us that without convincing genetic evidence, the theory linking this tomb to Vlad the Impaler remains merely a hypothesis, hanging by a thread between hope and reality. The scientific community insists on rigorous and careful testing to eliminate the risk of premature conclusions and improper historical interpretations. However, even without definitive DNA analysis results, the symbolic power of this discovery cannot be underestimated. The significance of the find is evident not only in scientific aspects, but also in the details that complement the overall picture. The inscriptions on the tomb walls, its design style, and the artifacts found inside. All of this creates a compelling argument that challenges long-standing perceptions of Vlad the Impaler's fate and identity. For many historians and antiquity enthusiasts, this is enough to begin rethinking the death and legacy of this enigmatic figure. It is also noteworthy that such a discovery has reignited interest in the figure of Vlad the Impaler, once widely known as the bloodthirsty inspiration for the legendary vampire Dracula. Now, he appears to us as a figure whose life and death prompt a deeper and more comprehensive exploration of questions of power, loyalty, and memory in medieval Europe. If DNA analysis confirms his identity, the story that unfolds before us will be far stranger and richer in nuances than any vampire legends. It will tell of a man who, even after his death, remained an active participant in treacherous political and family intrigues. A man whose legacy was carefully guarded and passed across borders, as evidenced by numerous legends and historical documents. His final resting place remained hidden from prying eyes for centuries, making his fate even more mysterious and intriguing. Truth, it seems, can sometimes be more captivating than fiction. If DNA analysis results prove that this tomb indeed belongs to Vlad the Impaler, history books will need to be rewritten, and our understanding of his life will need to be reconsidered. And perhaps the truth will be even more astonishing and shocking than the legend that has formed around him. What do you think? Did Vlad really hide in Italy all these years? Which versions seem most plausible to you? Share your thoughts and assumptions in the comments. A huge thank you to everyone who has watched this story to the end. Your support, feedback, and engagement are very important to us. Don't forget to carefully follow new releases. This will help you stay informed of the latest news and not miss our new materials.